I think it's been, we call the show triggernometry.
Yeah.
But even by our standards, this has been pretty triggering for a lot of people. However, there's something even more triggering that I do have to ask you about, because in between the time that we booked you to come on the show and you actually coming on the show, you had a guy called Nick Fuentes.
Oh yeah, Nick.
Yeah. And then you did an interview with this guy. Like, this is not a guy we would ever have on because he's a racist, Holocaust denying piece of shit as far as I'm concerned. But you had him on, and then you took that interview down and apologized. So what happened with the whole thing?
Oh, there's I can't talk too much. There's like legal things going on.
Legal things going
on? Yeah, there's not with Nick, but just but there's I have a video coming out about that whole thing, so you guys have to wait for the video. But I will say, I did not find Nick to be racist, and my staff actually did not find him to be racist.
Wait, he was talking to an Italian girl next to you and saying that she shouldn't have a black boyfriend or something along those lines.
He doesn't believe in. See, I don't really want to go into like the race mixing stuff too much.
No, but you just said he wasn't being racist, and I watched him be racist on your show.
Well, I mean, to me, he says the same things that like there's a lot of people that think like that.
But it doesn't make it less racist just because other people think it.
You could say that, but to me, it's like, how do I put it? His argument is more about culture. It's easier if you date someone in your culture. You'd have to watch the full thing, but was like being a bit like combative to him, and to me, he was just like kidding. But yeah,
he did say, "I am a bit racist," even in that. And in fact, in your apology, you said that he said racist things.
Well, there's a video coming out about all of that, but you'll see. It's coming out.
Okay. Well, the reason I'm asking you is because it's kind of like a big deal that you had this guy on. Do you see what I'm saying? He is incredibly toxic.
I'm just telling you my personal experience with him. We filmed hours and hours and hours of footage with him. There was that one, to me, if you watch the full clip, it puts it in a little bit of context. But he was really polite. He showed up on time. Like we just. Yeah.
He also
and honestly, he did a panel and he spoke about his opinions on race mixing, and a lot of people agreed with him.
Okay, but that doesn't change whether it's racist or not, right? But what I'm getting
Do you think it's racist to like? I'm curious. Do you think it's racist like if I'm Irish and I say I want to date someone that's Irish? Do you think that's racist?
No, but if I say to you, you're Irish, therefore you shouldn't date a black man, that is racist. Yeah.
If you're Irish because when he spoke about it on the show, it was more about culture than race.
But to me, that doesn't really work as an argument, Paul. So I'll give you an example. I'm half Latin American. I take after my dad's Irish side. If I date a Jamaican woman, Jamaica and Venezuela have a very similar culture. We're culturally very similar. We have the same food, the same religion, whatever else. So to me, that argument doesn't work. Do you see what I'm saying?
Wait, Venezuela and what?
Jamaica. So Venezuela's at the top of South America, and Jamaica is, or Trinidad, which is literally, you see it over the water.
Yeah, well, it's just, when he was talking about how he wanted to date an Italian woman, like versus, like he even said he wouldn't want to date a British girl, he wanted to date an Italian woman. So I was like, how is he a white supremacist?
No, he's allowed to date who he wants, but him telling your Italian friend she shouldn't be dating a black man, that's right, the racist part, don't you think?
I have to remember what he said in the clip, but maybe, yeah, maybe.
Okay, so that's why I'm asking you, because you do have controversial guests, as we do, and there's nothing wrong with talking to people who are controversial, but Nick Fuentes is a very different kettle of fish, as we say here, right?
Yeah, my opinion is that he was polite overall. He was a good guest.
He was also denying Holocaust, from what I remember.
Look, I'm not with that. Keep me out of that one. I'm not with the race. Like, that's not my thing, but I just think people are allowed to have their opinions. So if he has crazy opinions, let him have his opinions. And I think he should be allowed to talk about it on a podcast.
But isn't it also the duty, Pearl, of the person interviewing them to push back on those opinions when they come up and actually challenge them and investigate them and to basically push back on it?
Yeah, I mean, we could do another show where we push back more. It's not the end all be all.
But surely isn't that
I wanted to do like one with Dr. Umar, but he didn't want to come. Sad.
I don't know who that is.
Dr. Umar has like the same opinions as Nick. Like he doesn't believe in race mixing too. He's just black.
Yeah.
It's like a common. Yeah,
there are some people who believe that, sure. But you know, when you were talking about the Holocaust with him, he was saying it's like slavery, it got embellished, and you were sort of going, I can see your point. And that's why I found it a bit confusing, because then in your apology you said, well, I wasn't really educated on these things.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you're kind of taking that back.
There's a statement coming out and everything, so you just have to wait for it.
Yeah. From our perspective, we're kind of saying to you what we thought you might have said to him, which is if a guest says or does something controversial, you kind of want to ask and find out why they've done that. And we have to make, by the way, if this is coming across as confrontational, it's not the intention at all, because whenever I see a guest not be challenged enough on someone's show, I often think they're by the grace of God go I, because we've had people on the show who've said controversial things and I've sort of missed the moment and I kind of didn't challenge them enough and I felt bad about it afterwards. I don't know if you remember, because you're not a political person, you might not. There was a guy called Darren Grimes who had a guy called Dr. David Starkey on, and he said something about how of course slavery wasn't genocide, otherwise there wouldn't be so many damn blacks in the West, right? And that got picked up by all the media and they all had to go at him, and I just saw a fairly young, inexperienced interviewer in Darren failed to challenge someone who he looked up to and respected on what was just a bad phrasing more than anything, right? So I totally understand why you may have missed something or not have jumped in on something that you maybe felt that you should have jumped in on. But the reason that Francis and I would never have Nick Fuentes on is precisely because he says all that shit all the time. So if you were to actually challenge him on some of his abhorrent views, you'd spend the entire 3 hours doing that.
Did you watch the full video?
I watched some of it, not the full video. Yeah.
Okay. I did challenge him at points of it.
Okay, tell us about it.
I mean, we had a whole panel on race mixing, and like we had that was why he came out. Like the political stuff was just because he was there. Like so, I did a one-on-one as like the reason I brought him on was I saw him on No Jumper, like talking about race mixing, and I've heard that point of view, but it's usually like not. Like, people look different that have that point of view usually. So I've heard it, but I've just never heard it like that, I guess. So we just brought him on a panel just like about race mixing, and they did a whole panel on it.
But then he was denying Holocaust.
You know, that was crazy. Yeah, that was.
But that's what he does. That's why I'm asking you.
Well, but we brought him on to talk about race mixing. That's what we brought him on, because it's a relationship show, and we just interviewed him because he was there.
But there will be people, Pearl, who will say, well, if you're going to bring that person on, and look, again, this isn't to, misrepresent or do any of those types of things. So the reason we have this show is so we can talk and have honest conversations, because part of this is for me to clarify my thinking about different issues. That's why we do the show. But part of it is also when you bring someone on, you can't also ignore that element of it. Do you see what I mean?
I just don't know what you mean by ignore.
No, because if you're not addressing the fact that he's a Holocaust denier, then you're ignoring that. Do you see what I mean?
I mean, I don't agree that the Holocaust didn't happen.
Yeah, that's reassuring.
I mean, I was just listening to him. Yeah. And I think you're allowed to listen to people that you might not agree with. And I think as women, we're more agreeable than men. So a lot of times you might take it as me agreeing, but no, I didn't.
Well, you did say, so it's kind of like slavery, it's been embellished.
I was talking about how people use atrocities to control people. And I was quoting Thomas Sowell, who's a black author.
I'm a big fan of Thomas Sowell.
Yeah, so I was quoting Thomas Sowell and speaking about his ideas if people watch the full interview.
Yeah.
And I said that in the interview.
Yeah.
And I was talking about how people use an atrocity to control people.
Yeah. So, but you don't think that's what happened with the Holocaust?
It sounded like it based on what he was saying, but
he's a well-known Holocaust denier. Of course,
that's where I was feeling. Sorry, let me finish. At the time, that's what I was talking about. It sounded like some of Thomas Sowell's ideas. But do I think that the Holocaust didn't happen? No. That's crazy. Go ahead.
So I guess what do you think your responsibility is when you bring on controversial guests onto the show? Do you have any responsibility? What do you believe?
For the guests?
Oh, no, not for the guests. For the content that you put out, Pearl.
Yeah, I'm responsible for all the content I put out.
You're responsible for all the content that you put out. And do you now look at that and think you shouldn't have done that? You made a mistake, you made an error?
I don't regret having someone controversial on. If I had to do it again, I would have maybe had someone on the opposite end of the argument that could push back. But how I probably would have did it if I had to do it again, one full interview with both of them, let them talk, let them say what they're going to say, and then bring them together.
So who would you have on the other side? So you have
Dr. Umar!
but those are two people who share the same viewpoint. Just one happens to be white, one happens to be black. That's not, that's playing, do you see that's kind of identity
Well,
politics?
yeah, but then we did a whole panel with people that disagreed with him. So we did do that.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm a bit confused about is you did a whole apology, but it sounds like you're
stop
not.
asking me about this. Like,
It kind of matters.
I have a statement coming out about it. So
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll leave it to your statement. Listen, we always wrap up the show with the same question we ask all our guests, which is what's the one thing you think we're not talking about that we really should be?